What up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of Chop It Up Strength. As always, I'm Coach Parker.
I'm Coach Zach. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's good to have you guys here. This is, I forgot what episode number one. It's like in the 30s, though. 33?
33, I think.
Yeah. If you're
So
watching this,
many we can't even count.
dude, that's how we're rolling. And I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and I saw 2,000. I'm like, oh, that dude has recorded podcasts over 2,000 times.
That's wild, man.
That is a lot of podcast recordings.
It's a lot. I mean, he's OG, though. He was doing it before it was cool.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
There's a lot. But just see this. We're in our infancy for sure, still at 33. But it feels like we've been doing it a while. But it's still pretty young.
I know.
It's crazy.
I know. Maybe we'll have stuff figured out by the time we hit 1,000.
Yeah, probably not. We'll probably still be making the same mistakes. Like, oh crap! How do you do this again?
Why won't this turn on?
I swear, last time I told my computer to save it, but it's not saving. It's hilarious. But I'm pumped for today's episode, dude, because today we're reviewing CBUM's program, his app, really.
Chris Bumstead, the great.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Chris Bumstead for people who may not know him. Oh, wait, whoa. Dude, before we get started, what are you doing? Question of the day. Oh, speaking, and our most sincere apologies. Last episode with Chad, Coach Chad Pearson, was awesome, but we made a huge mistake. And we didn't ask a question of the day, dude.
Probably because he can't be trusted with that. Like, let's be honest,
Yeah.
Asking him a direct question to answer, that's outside of his depth for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We needed him to talk about weights and weights only, nothing else.
How much do you bench?
Show us those calves.
Yeah, now we're talking.
We did get some hate mail from some of your coach colleagues of not going into certain Instagram pages of calf pictures and stuff. We'll have to save that for next time.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk to him because we have a potential guest. Because so far, the last 3 episodes we've posted, he just responds with no invite.
Yeah,
so we got to invite him.
We got to invite him, dude. I'm intrigued to see what that man says on a recording platform.
Heavy K, let's go.
I'm down. That'd be fun. Yeah, let's bring him on. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But so today's question of the day is, Zach, who's your favorite population of individuals to train, and tell me why?
That's tough. So I'll answer it 2 ways. So to date, if we're just going kind of general, or the populations that I've worked with, my last job, working with operators, was my favorite, hands down. Not that I didn't love the other ones. It's just it's a different dynamic, and one that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. What about it made it special?
One, the stakes are the highest that you can have.
Yeah.
Right. It is fun to work with sports teams or athletes and be a part of their, successes and failures, and help them, you're supportive and help them navigate that and all that kind of stuff. And, be a part of the, a big game win and things like that. That's a ton of fun. Yeah. And going through athlete development and seeing, because college athletes, some of them come in as quote unquote kids, and they become adults while they're there.
Yeah.
And so being a part of that, seeing their successes, see them grow and develop, that's awesome. And some of my best memories are from collegiate. But at the end of the day, we're talking wins and losses in a game, and it's not to demean it, but it is what it is. It's a game. And the field that you and I are in now, training guys to go down range, and they might not come back. They might not come back in one piece, either physically or mentally. The stakes are higher.
Yep.
And so it makes, it raises the stakes on what we do to a degree. But then also there are, at least where I was working, right? The guys are a little older, so that it's more like peers. So the things you talk about in between sets and things like that are they're light and they're fun, but sometimes they're heavy, and they're heavy in a way that's something that you've dealt with, or you could very much see yourself being in that type of thing. And so it's just a different environment. And then also, like, with my last job, like, we're talking, regardless of what athlete population you work with, motivation generally is in there to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much with that demographic, right? That motivation piece is something that they have handled.
Yeah.
They've got that covered. And so you're all the time that you spend working on thinking of how to motivate, how to encourage discipline, how to do those types of things, all that time is now spent elsewhere. And so I really enjoyed that for sure. But I was talking about this the other day, in my current role, is if you're working with people that show up and put out, I don't care what age, what sport, what not sport. Like, if you're here and you put out, I'm here for it.
Yep. I feel the same, dude. I can get, because in between, it depends on what types of sessions you're leading, but there's always some downtime where there's some interaction with the individual, right? Whether it's resting between hypertrophy sets, or like you did this big circuit and you're taking 3 minutes, right? There's always this downtime. And for 3 minutes, you can talk with anybody, right?
Yeah.
But when people are getting after it and working hard, there's a presence in the room that it's like this cycle of energy, dude. Like, it makes you want to give them some, and then they get stoked about your coaching presence, and it's this great cycle. But if there's individuals that are in that room that are just like dragging ass, there is nothing more demotivating for me as a coach and the other individuals around them. Which is the importance of when you talk about like weight room culture and getting, like, that's why I think people love CrossFit, dude. Because like, they don't have to work out by themselves. They're around other people that want to get it, and it becomes this vibe and this culture. And there's a lot of intangibles that come from a group of motivated individuals getting after it.
I agree.
And so your population is the epitome of motivated individuals. Almost to the point where, like, what a good problem to have to say, okay, you shouldn't do that instead of you need to go do that. What a great problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about it many times, right? Like, there's areas where in the field that you can work in where part of your job is trying to, like, spark a fire, light a fire, keep a fire burning.
Yeah.
Here you're reining guys back in.
Yep.
You're trying to no. Less is more, less is better, that kind of thing. Because, I mean, they're going to run through walls, crawl through walls,
Mm-hmm. They're going to do that in their training and in their actual job training.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it's a good problem to have. I think for me, favorite population to train, dude, is I love training like the 50-year-old CEO.
Really?
Yeah, dude. It's fun because they've got so much life experience.
Oh,
Most of the time, if they're a C-suite individual, like, they're pretty motivated. They understand the value of healthy habits. They take care of their bodies. They understand that their mind needs to be sharp because there's a lot of money on the line for it. And so a lot of these C-suite individuals are highly motivated. And I think when you get to a certain level of business, you realize there's a lot of value. You start to understand what you don't know. And there's an acceptance of, I don't know what I don't know. That's why I hire individuals and expertise, right? And so when they bring you on and they're paying you a certain amount, they are treating you like you're the expert. They're also, feeling you out, because typically those high-level individuals can smell bullshit, right? Because bullshit costs them a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so that level of an individual, and when they're in their 50s and their 40s, they're young enough to get after it. And they're like, I want to keep getting after it, but like, I know I need to change some things. And so it's a fun area of, you're training high caliber individuals. You still get to get after it, but your expertise become more valuable, because now all of a sudden you can't just pick up a program off the shelf and be okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're actually going to hurt yourself. And so they need a lot of modulation and modification to movement and programming. So you're really involved. And then you get to have like fun conversations. And dude, I got some cool like year-end gifts from people like that. They give you like hundreds of dollars, bottles of wine, and it's just a fun little thing, And so I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I would get bounced from that environment immediately. They'd be like, no, this guy this guy doesn't belong with our high earning class of people.
You would do good in that environment, dude. You would. You would. You would. You would do good in training groups of people like that. I think one on one too, high level individuals would like you. Probably the like 80-year-old grandma with a lot of cash. I don't think she'd like you very much, but that's okay.
We're talking about old ladies love me.
That's true. You're nice. You say ma'am.
Yeah, I do say that.
And you're old school. Yeah. But so today, do you have any? So have you had any of your operators or any people you've worked with talk about CBUM's programs or do them or anything? No.
No.
So the reason I brought this up is number one, CBUM, Chris Bumstead is like one of the most popular bodybuilders around right now,
Yep.
right? And
even though he's done now, career's over, retired.
He's retired, right? And so now it's cool if you follow his Instagram. It was a lot of bodybuilding type training, and his last video, I think I sent it to you, was him jumping on force plates.
Yeah.
Right, so he's starting to try to explore the realm of like more athletic type training. So I'm intrigued.
I mean, you and I both know, and anybody that's done it, like he's done bodybuilding for a long time. That style of training is fairly repetitive. Like, I'll bet he's stoked to do anything else.
I bet he is. I bet he is, because you're trying to find variations. That's like the difference between your hand here and your hand here, right? Like that's your variation for bodybuilding, your hand placement, right? Whereas in the world of athleticism, you get to really open that space up.
Oh yeah,
and so it'll be cool to watch him because he is responsible, I think, for motivating and leading a lot of people's training. A lot of people say, I want to look like Chris Bumstead, so I'm going to train like that.
He's got to be, I'd say more so than any of the open bodybuilders, like in terms of the general population, he's got to have the most exposure of any competitive bodybuilder over the last, what do you say, 5 years?
Yeah, 5, 6, 7 years. He really came on the come up about 5 or 6 years ago. So you're right. And so we figured it'd be cool to review his program. The reason I thought of it is I've had multiple Marines come up to me and say, hey, what do you think about this training program? And they've showed me a Chris Bumstead training program. And so I sparked like, hey, let's review it because it is one of the more popular ones. Let's get into, Zach, do you want to take like his kind of background? Like give me a general outline of the app and kind of who Chris Bumstead is that we haven't already covered.
Yeah, so I mean, right, he's a bodybuilder. He's Canadian.
I didn't know he's Canadian.
Yeah, he didn't compete in the open class. Was it classic physique? I think was his class.
Yeah, and where they wear like board shorts or whatever typically.
No, not that. See, I'm not up to date on all the differences. I can't remember what board shorts are. Just physique, maybe just general physique. He's like classic physique. So more chasing after kind of the Arnold look.
Okay.
Open class are where you get the mass muscle, the Ronnie Coleman, Jacob, just dudes that are enormous.
Yeah. There's some massive human beings in there. You're talking 300 pounds and they're like 5'8",
Yeah. They're huge.
Yeah.
Not that Charlie isn't big.
Yeah. What does your coach Charlie compete in?
Open. I'm pretty sure he's open. He's
a big individual.
Yeah, he is big.
Yeah.
I think he's the same height as Chris Bumstead. I think 6 foot 6'1".
Okay. Something like
that. I don't know what Chris Bumstead's weight was off the top of my head. Anyway, he's a 4 or 5 time winner straight and then retired.
Yeah. It's awesome.
And as far as his program goes on the app, he has a lot of options.
Yeah.
Right. So it isn't like you sign up for the app and you are on his program. So, he's got different push-pull legs, bro splits. He has his road to Olympia. He has his Arnold split. He has his legacy push-pull lower.
Yeah.
Like legacy bro split. He's got a lot of options on the app, which is very cool.
Yeah.
To have choices. His app is also very sleek, very user-friendly, easy to navigate.
Super sleek. That was the first thing I was most impressed with. I was like, man, it flows so well. It is so easy to navigate.
Yeah, and it looks cool.
It does.
It's user friendly. It's very intuitive. with no, like when you sign up for apps or things like that, they give you like the kind of required run through tutorial where you have to click OK about all the different options that are available.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
So his doesn't have that. And it's like, there's zero problem. Just like figuring it out on the fly will take you no time.
Dude, that's a really good point that I never thought about. You're exactly right. You just kind of know how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a well-made app.
Yeah. And it's cool because what I liked about it is like it's an all-in-one thing. You got nutrition, you got community, like you got a place to track your macros with a decent food library. And then you got
good video library,
great video library. Like when he's showing movements, they look like the video looks good. He looks good. You're like, yeah, man, I want to look like Chris. Like you feel it's got all of those check marks when it comes to aesthetic and user experience.
Yep. So okay. So like we're going total review. My like out of the gate, it's like if I'm running through. So I got on the app, right? You made the account, sent me the password and stuff. So I get on kind of blind.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going through and like I'm a new user. I'm looking through it. And it's like, okay, if I'm not doing bodybuilding, there's no other option.
No other option. And that's one of my gripes is when you go through the beginning, I don't think you got to do it because I created the account. It had you pick like what type of equipment do you have access to? Do you want to do sports performance, Olympic weightlifting? Like you got to select all of these things. And so I was selecting, Olympic weightlifting, sport performance, all this stuff. And it does nothing with that information, what it looks like at least, because all the programs are nothing but bodybuilding style programs.
It gives you the feel of it. Like,
yes.
And you and I both know people that, coaches that do things like this, where they do things to give you the feel that it's individualized without making it individualized.
Right.
And, we talked about this before we got on, and we'll probably touch on it again, but I don't hold that against him or the app, right? Like something to keep in mind for our listeners and anybody that's trying to wade through the cesspool that's of available fitness things that are out there is everybody that has something that you have to pay to sign up for, including us.
Yeah.
Right. There is a slide scale of the degree to which they are selling nonsense for return.
Right.
And so I don't hold it against him at all for making a program that's, kind of like these generic programs, because the more specific and specialized you get, the more you alienate your target market.
Absolutely.
So to appeal to a lot of people, it has to be pretty general.
Right. And you can build the stoke quickly by giving options in the beginning, right? As if it's individualized, right?
Right.
Hey, I'm going to give you access to click this, click that. And you feel like, oh shit, this is building into something built for me. And then you enter this platform where all those clicks really meant nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
And because as a user, you don't know how many programs have been sifted out.
Right.
So it shows up with these 8 programs and you're like, oh, maybe there was 30 and these 8 work for me. When in reality, there's just 8 period.
Right. Right. And you're going to see the same 8 no matter what things you click. Yeah. I would assume that's the way that works because the information I input, if there were programs given to me based off that information, then their algorithm is fucked. It's completely wrong. It's completely wrong.
Yeah.
But it's probably more like what you said. I mean, I think that's such a good point, dude. And you're always so good about that, of just reminding myself and all of our listeners of that aspect of, there's always salesmanship. Always salesmanship in the fitness world.
And the only so if, you and I are trying to do it, like we have a lot of background, so we know this, but if you're wading into like, I'm trying to find an app, I'm trying to find a program, I'm trying to do this, and whatever, like I missed January 1st, but I'm going to kill it the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Awesome. But the more popular it is, the more general it's going to be.
Great. That's a great rule of thumb as well. Because it has to appeal to the masses, man. Like it has to. He can't make specific individualized programs for 25 million individuals. That's how many people follow him on Instagram.
Yeah. Look, if we're making a movie and we want a bunch of people to come see it and make a bunch of money. You make a Transformers. You don't make a foreign film that's
Yeah,
dubbed with subtitles.
that's true. That's true.
And
Although, if you're
that
trying
niche audience with that dubbed subtitle, they're going to be loyal as all get out, all 10 of them.
to,
But 100,000 people are going to go to your other one. You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
it's a great point. And that's how, like, especially when it comes to bodybuilding style training, more people participate that than in any other training. I think,
Yep.
there's definitely more people doing bro splits than there are people doing full body, concurrent training programs or hybrid quote unquote athletes. And
Yeah.
so he's going to hit more of the masses building those type of programs. There is one beef, and I know we're going to get into the details, but as we're staying overview, I don't know if you saw this, dude, but there's a power building program in there that's 10 days long.
Yeah, I
Like,
saw.
what are you doing? And the intent was like, all right, we're going to get stronger. We're going to do this, this, and this. The rep schemes were like 12, 12, 10, 8, 6. So you hit like one heavy set, but it's after all this other volume, right?
Right.
And then you're only doing 10 days. So to call this a power building program, that was booty. I remember looking at that being like, this is honestly booty. Like, that's really bad. Like, I give that an F out the gate, right? False advertising, not long enough. The program stunk, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what the general consensus is if people don't listen anymore. This is a beautifully packaged poop. This is like, oh my gosh, this is perfect wrapping paper. It smells good. It's under the Christmas tree. And then you open it up and it's a dog's turd, because that's basically, that sounds really rough.
Yeah.
But this is pulling, you would be doing the same thing going to Muscle and Fitness and ripping out a workout.
The thing that blows me away, I don't know what like the margins they work with or the discretionary income they have to bring in other employees or whatever, but it's like, you make this like we talked about. It looks cool. It's easy to use. It's easy to track. All these things are in house. We've got nutrition. We've got a community. Why not just pay a strength coach to program for you?
That's a great thought.
I don't know why that's not a thing. Well, I do. It's because the general public generally, like, one of the reasons why we're doing this is the general public isn't super savvy at sifting through the things that are valuable and the things that are not.
Right.
So it's like, well, if we have a budget, let's spend it on making our app look dope, because nobody cares if our program is worth anything.
Right. Dude, that's another really good thought. He should hire a strength coach. It is frustrating because that's a really bad program. And you're right, man. If he hired a strength coach to come in there and build even some better hypertrophy programs, because that's the thing. These programs are bad even on the scale of bodybuilding programs, right? Yeah. There is one positive in that he talks about tempo, which is great. I think that's an awesome aspect. But if you put his program stacked up with other hypertrophy programs, especially with who we consider to be the pinnacle is Renaissance periodization, it stands no chance against a program from RP.
No.
Yeah. No. So, and I thought that there's another thing that when I was reviewing the program is the app, and I noticed that literally the difference of programs is just splits.
Yeah.
Right. Like you talk about, pull. This is a push, pull legs. Okay, this is an Arnold splits. Like, and we talked about in our previous episode of, bro splits versus full body. Splits is a very small variable to be considered. Not this like, this is the difference of the program.
Yeah.
And so I remember looking at that being like, okay, that's not a good aspect of this either.
I went and looked through a bunch of the programs looking at, so I would open it up and go to the days, right? So like, the bro split where you got upper, lowers, and so I'm going through and trying to discern, like, okay, do we have any kind of emphasis here? Is there anything like that? And that's another, like, we're getting into kind of pros and cons, but there's no discernible emphasis on any of the programs, which is fine, right? If we're going, we don't need, maybe, you're not focused on emphasis right now. You're trying to bring everything up. Awesome. But at some point very soon, if you're getting into like bodybuilding type stuff, you're going to have lagging body parts. And that's where you get a lot of the program variation from hypertrophy, is leaning in to areas that need more attention.
Right.
And so none of that's there either.
Yes. Another great point. it's a great point. Whereas, a decent bodybuilding program, the beginning should be, what body parts do you want to improve? What body parts are good, right? Because, okay, we're going to put maintenance volume at those body parts. Okay, we're going to put maximum recoverable volume at these body parts, right?
Right.
And like you said, there's none of that, and there's a lot of volume in these programs. Like running through the push pull legs, I'm like, my gosh, that's a ton of volume. 4 to 5 sets for every movement, often ending with AMRAPs of pull ups after a back day. Pull ups
Yeah.
are hard, dude,
Oh, yeah.
especially with good tempo. You're telling me I'm going to do that after everything else? I don't think
If
so, man.
I go for a big back day, I am able to do no pull-ups at the end.
Right. Dude, I was literally, so I went through I started a RP block today,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
doing their 5 day a week full body template. And you do incline. So I did some incline, and then I supersetted some flies, like some pec deck flies, with some
Mhm.
deficit push-ups.
Oh, nice.
I was doing those, and then my deficit push-ups, I was getting hits of like 6. I'm like with full tempo, and that's only after 2 exercises, and that's a push-up, which is way easier than a pull-up. Right.
100%.
So if you're doing the proper stimulus during your movements, a pull-up at the end for AMRAP is a little. I don't think that's a good use of volume. Again, that's just something you throw in there to be like, here you go. Right. This is like a general fun, mix it up kind of thing, which is kind of what the whole apps programs are.
Another easy critique on that, right, is why are you prescribing pull-ups for sets and reps when you don't know the weight of the individual?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a really like individualized critique.
You and I walk into like we walk in to do some pull-ups together, and I weigh $180, and you weigh 240. We ain't doing the same number of pull-ups.
Right. It's a very different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's another good point. Let's get into the pros. So
Yeah.
you start talking. I have to go turn off my oven. There's the frittata that I'm looking at that's ready
Don't
right
let it
now.
burn. Don't let it burn.
Give me 2 seconds.
Go get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. One huge thing that that Parker already mentioned that is a huge pro in both our books is tempo being prescribed. So if you're not familiar with tempo, we've talked about it before, but tempo is specific prescription for how you're moving the weight. So how many seconds it takes for you to lower the weight. Is there any pause at the bottom? How long you're doing the concentric or the the push,
Yeah.
and then whether there's any pauses at the top. So tempo prescription is going to be 4 numbers. You're just going to see 4 numbers. Sometimes you'll see X's in there as well for something that's explosive. Generally during the contraction, I've never seen it anywhere other than the contraction.
Same.
But for instance, right, if you're doing a bench press and you see 4 numbers and it says 31x0, that's 3 seconds lowering the weight to your chest, a second pause on your chest, exploding up as hard as you can, and no pause at the top. So that's how you read those numbers. And there is prescription for tempo on every program I looked at.
Yeah. And that's impressive.
That's great.
That's great. I think that's a huge aspect of hypertrophy training that people miss out on. We talk about it all the time. Tempo used improperly increases your chance of injury and decreases the stimulus you get, right?
Mm-hmm.
So him focusing on that is huge.
And tempo used correctly helps use really the weight you should be using.
Right.
2, you're having to control it, so you're getting better stimulus for your time under tension. If there is longer tempos, you're getting more time under tension.
Right.
You having to control the weight and picking a weight that allows you to do that makes you less susceptible to injury. Like, there's a lot of benefits for using tempo.
Absolutely.
And it being a major part of his program does 2 things, I think. 1, helps, 3, maximize your lift. 2, helps keep you healthy and safe. But 3, if you're getting on this app, it's going to give you the education on it as well, which is awesome.
Yep. It's a really big pro. Another pro is that the rest days are adjustable. I like that because, people's schedules are different, and you can play around with which workout you want to do which day. Which again goes back into like the sleekness of the app. It's like a cool drag. It really is easy to do.
I completely agree. Easy, like we talked about before, intuitive, easy to track your reps, your weights.
Yep. And I also like that it gives limited equipment options.
I do too.
Yeah, like that's big, dude. There's a lot of people that don't have access to commercial gyms, and that can be challenging
Mm-hmm.
to, especially in the bodybuilding world where variations of hand placement, make all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
It can be challenging to stay mentally engaged, right? So having limited equipment options can keep things fresh for you.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. Video library, excellent. Production on it, very good. There's videos for everything, and I do think it's you might not notice if it was a different way, but one thing that I like is like if I'm getting Chris Bumstead's app, it's because I'm interested in his take on training.
Right.
So I like that he's in the video, like it's him in the
Yeah.
videos, not somebody else.
And that's a really good point, because if it was somebody else, you'd be like,
Yeah.
this doesn't make any sense,
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also cool that he puts his like road to Olympia in there, and he puts like it seems like he put a little bit of his own preparation type stuff in
Mm-hmm.
there, which again gives you that I'm going to train to like Chris Bumstead to hopefully look like Train Bumstead
Right.
aspect.
Right.
Are there any more pros that you can think of before we go to the cons?
I liked so there's there's options to manipulate certain variables within the program.
Yeah.
So this is really beneficial if maybe you're not a novice lifter, maybe you're an intermediate, you hop on this app and you know some things about yourself. You're like, ooh, if I do this after this, that's going to hurt my shoulder.
Yeah.
So there's some room to order certain variables like the order of exercises, the actual exercises you can modify as well. I like both of those options being there.
That's a good point. Because sometimes you show up to the gym too and everything's taken, and you have to make an adjustment on the fly. Of like, well, I didn't have access to that.
The machine's broken and you don't have access to it.
Right. That's big. That's really big. That's a good aspect. That's a good aspect. Should we go into the cons?
Oh, it's always my favorite.
I mean, number one, categorizing and building programs based off of splits is nowhere even close to the best way of defining what a program should be. As you said, they should be defined based off of where the volume is focused, not what day you're doing what.
Yeah.
That's a huge one.
It's maybe, and I just caveat real quick for maybe some listeners, but I know I was in the school of thought, earlier in my career when we were at Utah, but you'd be like, well, why are these two guys criticizing a program written by Chris CBUM, who's like 4 or 5 time Mr. Olympia, like Jack, like, why wouldn't I listen to him? And to quote, so there's 2 coaches, both IFBB pros, or one IFBB pro and one not, but they coach other high level bodybuilders, and they were asked kind of anonymously their take on high level bodybuilders programming, and that it's not good, generally speaking.
Really?
They're just very gifted genetically, very gifted from a discipline standpoint, both on training and nutrition, right? They're disciplined individuals who work very hard and have great genetics. Their programming isn't as optimal for them. It's not optimal. It's not optimal for anybody. They just get big on it because they can.
Right.
And I think that's one of these things that's like, if Chris Bumstead is like, so his Road to Olympia program, if that is actually what he did, and I will admit I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
But if that is what he did, then that kind of speaks to it all the more that he's a genetic freak.
Yeah.
Right? Like if he got 4-time Mr. Olympia off of this program, it's like, I wonder what he would have looked like had he been on a great program. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you said, those splits not being the best way, like they're not.
Yeah.
It's not saying they're not the best way for a certain individual. It's just and there's no option. All of them are splits,
right?
And kind of either push, pull, or bros,
right?
So
that's not going to help me decide which program I want, right? How I should be thinking about which program I want is, I want to get my shoulders bigger. Therefore, this is a program where more delt is targeted, right? Like that's the way the program should be categorized, not push pull legs versus bro splits. That doesn't matter. Where's the volume focused?
Yep.
Yeah, and I just had a conversation with an online client the other day of like, I don't know if I already said this, but he's like, hey, I want to get stronger and put on a little bit more muscle mass. I said, great. He's like, I really want to get stronger. So I'm like, okay, we're going to put on 5-3-1 and we're going to add some accessory days.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started going. He's like, hey, I do best on push pull legs. Why are we doing full body? And I had to like have this conversation with him of, hey, well, strength is the main priority, XYZ. If you're going to be practicing your sport, XYZ. And we had to have this long back and forth of me talking him off a ledge about push pull legs being the best way to get strong.
Yeah.
Okay, again, that's the representation of the misunderstanding, right?
Yeah.
Splits matter in some regard, but there's not a superior split method.
No. What's the saying? Methods are many, but principles are few. Something like that.
Sounds about right. That sounds very familiar.
Yeah. So it's like there's a million ways. There's a million ways to skin the cat, but like the principles underlying it don't change.
Right.
And I had this issue actually with somebody earlier last week at work. That's like the same type of thing, like trying to manipulate variables without understanding principles. And it's like, okay, so like you sound like you know what you're talking about, but as soon as the like ground starts to shift, it becomes very apparent you don't, because you can't take it from one environment and change it and put it back in.
Right. That's how you spot the phonies. Is you just ask a couple probing questions, change the context, and see what they say.
Yeah.
You know, good professional. I was listening to a Joe Rogan episode, and he said basically, he's like, you could wake me up at 4 a.m. and I'm in a drowsy state, and you could ask me questions about what I'm an expert on, and I'll be like, you know, like what? No, it's this, you know. And he's like, and if you can't do that, and then you get caught with your pants down, right? If you're claiming to be an expert and you can't do that, then you're not an expert. And when someone catches you, you were caught with your pants down, you know? I was like, that is true. Like someone could wake me up and ask me anything strength and conditioning related, mainly from bodybuilding all the way to speed development. And I should be able to wake up and be like, oh, no, it's this, you know?
Yeah.
And
that's a good, I like that.
Yeah.
The other way I've heard it is like, can you explain it so a 5-year-old understands?
That's a great way too. It's a great way. And
there's a YouTube series where they bring in these high level subject matter experts. So they'll bring in like an astrophysicist that is, you know, near the forefront of the field, and they'll bring in like an elementary school kid, and he explains a concept to them, and it's the same. So like it's the concept of gravity. So he'll explain it to a little kid. He'll explain it to a high schooler. He'll explain it to an undergrad student. He'll explain it to a graduate level student, and then he'll explain it to someone else that's a high performer in his field. And you can go through and hear it like get more and more complex, but the underlying idea remains the same throughout. And you're like, I understood it at every level. And then when it starts to kind of like check out, right, the astrophysicist one is like at a graduate level student, it's like, I don't even understand the terminology.
Right. Dang, that's cool. I would like to watch that series.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please do, because I think we as individuals maybe get a little arrogant because we understand a concept given by an expert.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I got it, right? So now I know, when that expert did a lot of modification to their teaching strategy to get you to think that you know what you're talking about and to understand the concept generally, but there's a lot more complexities within it, you know? Yeah. And I think that's the art of coaching. That's the art of teaching, right? That's why you can't always trust just because someone looks good or just because someone played in the NFL doesn't mean they're a good teacher or a good coach, right? Mm-hmm. There's a difference between understanding and implementing, right? And teaching others, right? And so I think that and online, dude, you don't get to feel the art of coaching. That's something you can only feel in person, or, you know, that has to be made apparent through like long form videos, you know. Like RP is very clear that they have the art of coaching down because they
I think you can get it too, like hiring an online coach where there's
back and
like
forth.
Specific interaction to you. I think you can get it, but like if you can get it in person is best. Yeah, and then you know grades away from that. But I completely agree.
And I think another con for me is that the programs are just way too short, dude.
Yeah.
15,
Especially for hypertrophy.
Yeah, a 15-day program. I'm like, it just feeds into the program hopping mentality. And they probably built it that way because people don't stick to programs.
Yeah.
You know?
You do your 15 days and you're like, oh, I like it. Oh, then just do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when really
and we're not getting the progression, we're not getting the,
yeah, a good hypertrophy program, I think, should be at least 10 weeks.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, well, eight weeks is you're just starting to get out of neurological adaptation.
right.
And so like I'm working on this. I know we both are, but so when you start a program, when you start lifting, when you start doing anything that's new, so like if you were powerlifting and shifted to bodybuilding, or you were an athlete and shifted to strongman, or you were doing nothing and shifted to lifting, or you went from a day a week to 4 days a week.
Yeah.
There's going to be a period of time where it's your brain learning how to optimally contract and handle the signals and all this kind of stuff that allows you to do the program kind of physically optimally. And those first 6 to 8 weeks, when we say they're neurological adaptations, it's your nervous system, your brain adapting.
Yeah.
There's not the muscular changes that we're looking for until later.
Right. And that's not necessarily true though. Let's say you were lifting for 5 years, 6 years, and you've been doing hypertrophy and you're just switching up the emphasis, right? Is that, yeah. But like in the beginning, when you're changing training modalities and training styles, that's especially true.
Yeah. And it makes these concepts, they're very intuitive concepts that people kind of get lost when they apply them to this area for some reason.
Yeah.
If you were a golfer and then you switch to tennis, well, it's both hitting a ball with an implement, so it should just cross over, no problem. No, there's a lot of time that's taking to learn. Your brain's got to learn that new task.
That's a really good analogy.
Same's true with lifting. And your body's not only learning to execute the task, but to handle the stress associated with it.
Yep. It's a really good analogy, Zach. You're good at that stuff. Is there any other we've kind of been hitting cons throughout. Do you have any other cons before we kind of go to like our summary,
I got one more that's along your thing with it being short. So the power build, the legacy bro split, and a couple of others, there's just a disappointing kind of trend where an arm only day. Now, I know the bros love the arm only, but if you're doing an arm only, you're probably obliterating them and probably only doing it once a week. Your arm muscles are small in relation to the rest of some larger muscles on your body.
Yeah.
I don't mean you have small arms if you're listening,
although
they're not as big as Parker's.
Dude, my arms are actually kind of small.
Shut up.
They are. They are. I don't feel like my arms are that big. I feel like my chest is big. I have a big chest by genetics.
You're just dumping all over me. I see.
big chest and big butt. Those are the two things I was blessed with. But yeah, if I was a female, I'd be doing great right now. But,
hey, it's 2025. The time is yours.
That's right, dude. Actually, I think I might be better off as a female. I think I could make a lot more money. I think I'm switching.
All right. Can I please be there when you tell Maya?
Yeah, golly. Hey, golly, those conversations. I think about that all the time. I'm like, what a confusing conversation that must be for the partner. That stuff just fucking blows my mind. But anyways.
Yeah, back on track.
Yeah, back on track. Sorry.
They have he has arm only days on some of the splits. Like I think it's the legacy bro split.
Yeah.
It's a singular muscle group for each day. So it's like chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, shoulders, so the reason that's problematic, like an arm day or these singular muscle groups 1 day a week is, and this is again, right? Like this is why you should not copy and paste other people's stuff, is maybe that works for him. He's won the genetic lottery. He's a genetic freak. I'm not downplaying the amount of effort and work and dedication he's put in, because he has, for sure, to maximize his genetics and his physique. But right, if all of us are playing the game on Monopoly, not all of us start on start.
Yeah.
Right? There's some people that start have gone around the board 6 times and have hotels all over the place when you start.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And that dude has elite genetics. And so maybe he gets away with doing it. But for us mortals, doing arms 1 day a week is not nearly as effective as doing biceps, if that's the emphasis, on 2 days a week and triceps on 2 days a week.
Right.
Because you have some synergistic effect. Like if you're adding triceps on your bench day, triceps do stuff on a lot of pressing movement.
Right.
So you're getting some out of that, and you're getting some out of your direct work, and you're hitting them with more frequency. That's going to give you way more results than annihilating your arms 1 day a week. Way more. You're never going to walk out of the gym not being able to pick your arms up, probably.
Right.
But so what? That's not the point.
And dude, your likelihood of developing tendonitis grows, right? Because you have you're in this fatigue state by the time you come back to back or triceps, and your elbow is just jacked up and inflamed from all that volume you just put it through. So 3 weeks in, you're looking at elbow, tennis elbow, golf elbow, whatever,
Yeah.
And so I couldn't agree more with that point. That's a really good point.
That was my last con.
Yeah. So I guess in general, summarizing thoughts. This can be a short episode because there's really not a lot to say about this. I think my personal thoughts are 2 kind of overall thoughts. CBUM is dope. He looks great. He seems like a really good dude. The programs are fine for someone who just wants to hop around programs and just doesn't really take their lifting serious. They kind of just are like, yeah, I lift and I, whatever. They're just kind of whatever about it.
Yeah.
Go dabble with these programs and you'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
But if you're serious about it, these programs are not going to get you where you want to go, right? So therefore, why are you spending $15 a month on it? Right?
Yeah. I don't think there's any malicious intent on his part. Like you said, I mean, I don't know him, never met him.
Yeah. Same.
He's been on some podcasts recently. Modern Wisdom was one I listened to him on, and I was really impressed. I think he's a genuinely good guy who has like some great personal principles. Like he's a family guy. Being a father is important to him, and then all the kind of ancillary things that go along with such a long bodybuilding career. I mean, the dude's disciplined.
Right.
The dude knows like how to, when he doesn't want to, it doesn't matter. Like it's about what needs to be done. He talks about how he works about being a good husband and being a good father. Like he genuinely seems like a great guy. And I don't think anything that we're critiquing on this program is malicious at all. I just think it's a product of the fitness space and marketing to as many people as you can. So the programs are fairly generic. There's maybe some more advanced concepts thrown in, like tempo.
Yeah.
There's some trisets and some things like that. The good news on that point is hypertrophy doesn't have to be super complicated. So if you were going to put in your progressions, let's say you were going to run one of his programs back to back to back to back to back, and you were going to make sure you're progressing. I don't know that I have a ton of critique on that from a general standpoint. I'd be like, yeah, that's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's just not as good as it could be. I think when I saw like the app and the sleekness and everything, I was like, oh, like here we go. This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
But it's fairly general. And like we talked about before, if he's trying to get tons of people to get on it, that makes sense why it's general. I do wish there were some things like some actual, what I think you and I would call actual programs, things that last for 10 weeks, 12 weeks.
Yep.
There's some progressions built in, because if you are marketing to the general public's not going to know about progressive overload.
Right.
So you should handle that for them.
Yeah. Build it into the program. Don't ignore it because they don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seems like he built these programs with the consumer in mind, which has a lot, like knowing people are going to program flop, knowing people can likely not get through 3 weeks of program. So he's like, I'm going to build them a 3-week program. There's just 2 sides to that coin. Part of that's good because you met them where they're at, but part of that's bad because it's nowhere near optimal for what they should be doing.
Yeah. And maybe like I think you mentioned it earlier, or we talked about it before we started recording. Of there's some feel to the app like it is pushing you towards a more financial investment to get access to some other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so maybe the better programs, the things that we're saying don't exist, are behind this paywall.
Could be.
Maybe.
That was one of the things too in the beginning is you're going to download it and you're going to go through it and it's going to pop up. You're going to input all your info. It's going to pop up. It's going to show you all these programs. And you're going to be like, oh, dude, this is all free. You can even get a few clicks deep. And then you get like 3 or 4 clicks deep and it goes, boom, you don't have access to this subscription. I was like, oh, wow, this is like, so we had to get a subscription. But it makes you feel like you're going to get something for free when you're not. And I subscribe. We talk about it all the time. I don't think you should get free content.
I don't either.
I think you should have to pay. Maybe there's one general program, but I think you should have to pay.
That is again, super general and thus like maybe doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
But again, you get what you pay for. And if you ain't paying, then you don't get a lot.
Yep.
So like the free quote thing, right? Like every construction, every roofer, every landscaper will be like, yeah, we'll come out and give you a free quote.
Yeah.
But I'm not picking up a shovel. I'm not grabbing a hammer. I'm not doing nothing until you get out your checkbook or your wallet.
Right.
So I think, I do think like more people need to get in their head away from, I don't know why it's this way, but like that anything fitness should just be free.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't. You are getting somebody, you are paying for somebody's expertise, which they spent years accumulating and probably a lot of money going to school, certifications, visiting conferences, etc. Like that's what you're paying for.
Right.
And you get what you pay for.
Absolutely. I think we'll probably end up saying that every single episode because it's such an important thing.
It is. Yeah. I would be very interested, like on Instagram, if we should put this up sometime and get a question of like, why don't you think you should pay for it?
Yeah. We should. Maybe we'll put it on the story tomorrow.
Yeah. Like why do you
think fitness programs should be free?
Yeah. Yeah. And then respond back with they shouldn't.
Yeah. Or they'll be like, because it's easy and anyone can do it, I think that's a part of, unfortunately, I think something happened along the way that made, and you mention it all the time, is fitness is a weird aspect where people think they know what they're talking about just because they do it. Because a lot of people work out, right? Yep. And so you self-educate yourself to a certain extent, which is good. Mm-hmm. But, there's a lot more to it for good programs. And for some reason, people just think it's easy. And I don't know why they think that.
Yeah. And it's not that you can't self-educate because, the internet is great. And more so now than there has ever been. Yeah. There is tons of free education out there. Right. We talk about Renaissance periodization all the time.
Yep.
They have YouTube playlists that you could go through and get a pretty good grasp on hypertrophy.
Yeah.
The physiology, all kinds of stuff. You could go get it there.
Yep.
There's Brad Schoenfeld stuff. There's a lot of great content available for free for you to get an education, for you to do it. And I say that because I work on my vehicles, right? And I don't always know what to do. And thank goodness for YouTube, because that's how I figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that you can't go get the education and figure it out, but that's still an investment on your part. Like if you're like, I don't want to pay a coach, cool. Start reading the books, start watching the YouTube channel, start practicing programming for yourself. Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the time to do that or the desire to, there are people that already do that for you, if you don't want to figure out on YouTube how to fix your sink, you can call a plumber.
Right. It's a really good analogy. It's a good way. It's a good summarization of the behavior of fitness and the way people should approach it. And so I guess in summary, the CBUM program for me, I would steer people away from it personally. Yeah. You love CBUM and you're just going to flop around programs. I don't see the value of spending $15 a month on that platform when there's other platforms that are, maybe a tad bit more expensive that are just way better. Or, for those programs personally, you could probably just go online and look up, some free content. There probably are free programs out there that are equivalent to the quality of program that
Without question.
you just won't have access to the community or the sleek, ways to enter in your reps and stuff. But just bring a paper and pen. So for me, I'm steering people away from it personally. What about you?
Yeah. Similarly,
Yeah.
I would say like, right. If you have the money to do right, 15, 16 bucks a month, then I would say like at what level is your health, your fitness, kind of whatever you're chasing a priority for you. And then let's look at where you're spending your money elsewhere. Discretionary income that it shouldn't be a priority, right? Like you tell, and you and I have heard this a million times, right? You walk up and you're like, this is what I want. I'm 100% dedicated. I'm going to do it all. And it's like, okay, 75 bucks a month.
Oh.
And they're like, whoa. And it's like, okay, that does sound like a lot. How often do you go to fast food and Starbucks a week or a month? And let's tally that amount of money up. And you're like, so you're not that, just be honest. Like this isn't a negative critique on somebody that is in that boat. It's just like, you say it's priority one, but it isn't. So just be honest.
Right. And just because you're inspired for a moment doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to switch your life around to make these habits,
Yeah.
And, I don't know, instill in you. I'm moving slow today. That Sasha girl ain't fucking sleeping. Bags under my eyes. I'm like, oh, she's killing us, dude.
No word, you guys can get a break.
Yeah, I will. But no, just doing this is nice, having an hour away from her. I go back to work next Monday, and Maya works this week. So podcast will be a wholly protected time, but we'll have to make sure we're efficient on it for sure.
Nice.
I don't know, dude. Any other closing thoughts for the CBUM program before we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so. Right. If you want to go dabble around and see what it is, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
Of things that you're like, ooh, I actually like this, or I don't like this, or you agree with us, or you don't agree with us.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it either way.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we'll make an Instagram post trying to get some stuff going, but I guess on the Instagram note, right, be sure to follow us at chop.it.up.strength. We're starting to get some more followers, so that's cool. Just because we don't have a lot of followers does not mean that we're not good, good professionals. We got people coming on and, and we've been doing this thing for 25 years, right? So if you're a new listener, don't be, don't be shy because of the low followers. Neither us just like Instagram very much. So that's just kind of how it goes. But follow us on chop.it.up.strength. DM us. That's the best way to communicate with us. And if you guys want to support the podcast, you can go to Buy Me a Coffee. And that's a link in our little thing and support. And that just goes basically to Instagram for us to promote ads or get podcasting equipment or whatever.
Another thing I thought about, and I'm going to throw this out there, even though I haven't cleared it with you first.
Okay.
But
throw it at me, Daddy.
Both of us are in kind of the Jacksonville, Wilmington, North Carolina area.
Mm-hmm.
If you like the podcast and you're in the area and you want to train together or something like that, DM us and let us know.
Absolutely. We'd love to train with y'all, And when I move back to Salt Lake, same thing, because we'll be at a gym, So, but yeah, that's a really good point. We'd love to train with listeners and have more conversations about all this stuff for sure.
Absolutely.
I guess till next time, homie. Peace out.
All right, man.
Thanks for tuning in, y'all.
Thanks.